Okay, what's up people? Welcome back to another stream. Hope everyone is doing well. As always guys, if you're enjoying the content, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course make sure you do check out the Discord channel linked in the description below. You can also find it at the top of the chat, join discussions, share ideas, share opportunities. I share some of my setups there as well. So if you are looking to join the community, check it out, link in the description, free to join, and it's also at the top of the chat, so you definitely can't miss it. But guys, hope everyone's well. Welcome back to another stream. What's up? C stream, welcome to the stream. A lot of streams there. Yes, we'll take a look at dollar CAD. I'll go through USD side of things first. What's up, the high elf? Hope you're well. We'll go through USD side of things first. We'll go through the DXY, USD majors, gold and silver. And of course, any other requests, let me know. Drop it down in the chat, and of course, we'll discuss, share opinions. I'll show you guys what I'm looking to trade as well. And of course, any particular time frames you're looking at, let me know. Predominantly, I want to focus more on the 4-hour chart, daily chart. But if you do want me to go intraday, let me know, and I will take a look. What's up, Lebsy? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. So yeah, we'll start with the dollar as always. So DXY, we have seen some weakness for this one. Price was pretty bearish after CPI yesterday. Weren't seeing much momentum, and then we kind of picked up in the afternoon. Well, a little bit before the stream, but mainly afternoon, and then this morning as well. We are seeing some downside. So longer term, I'm still very much looking to short the dollar, but I did want to see more upside before I do sell. Now, potentially the market could sell off from here. Again, doesn't have to go up to where I want it to before the market does sell off. It looks like we are respecting this area pretty well. So if we can return for a double top, I will be looking for some entries to take it back down, because now I can see already there's a significant reaction here. So I wouldn't mind getting in for a second attempt if price can get there again, respect it, and see some similar selling pressure. If of course we still do push higher, then I'll of course look at this area here, which was my preferred area for the dollar to get to before we do potentially continue the big sell. I'm looking at that 104, 103.5 area as the real area which I wanted to sell from, but I was going to keep an eye on this level here too. So we've had a nice reaction. Market's looking pretty bearish. Again, no real opportunity for me to jump into any opportunities regarding the USD pairs, so like buying euro or buying pound. We'll get through them in a second. But USD is looking pretty weak, and we are coming into some areas where potentially we could see some buyers step back into the market, pulling back into a high here. I did speak about this area here yesterday. Didn't really provide much support. We broke through that very aggressively this morning. But as we do come back into this high here, which is around 100.2, this could be an interesting area which potentially we could see some buyers step into the market, and possibly a push higher as well. The DXY is still putting in these higher lows, and potentially we could still be looking to put another one in as well. So with the dollar, I'm still kind of short-term bullish on this one, but of course I'm still very much long-term bearish. I do think price is eventually going to get back to these lows, and probably a lot further as well. But this is now coming back into bullish territory. If you're looking to sell the dollar, now's not the time anyway. So if you are looking for opportunities, I think this could be an interesting area for some buys. So see how price reacts, see how we develop there. Do we see wicks, bullish engulfing candles? Well, that could be what we need to see for price to push up. If of course momentum sustains and we break through, again, that would be a situation where we kind of probably step back, see how price continues. Because if we do go and break the lows here, then we're probably just going to end up back at the lows there. So I wouldn't be looking to buy at that point. But at the moment, 100.2, 250, I think is a very interesting area. We're going to keep a close eye on that. Euro USD, pretty much the exact opposite of that, which is we've seen some nice momentum here. But as we do come back into these areas, which I was discussing yesterday, potentially could be seeing some selling opportunities. This is the high that gave us that drive lower. And I'm looking to see if price potentially could put another high in. There's of course some resistance just above us over here as well. I wonder if you can find resistance to push down. So with Euro USD, I'm still very much long-term bullish. I do think price can still go a lot higher, again back to highs at 1.156 and probably a lot higher as well. But of course, that potentially could be happening now. That could be happening now. Price did get back to this area here on the left. It did have pretty nice reaction with that momentum. It was pretty slow. We kind of picked up momentum gradually, but now we're looking pretty bullish there. So again, similar to the dollar, if euro was to push back down, respect the low, that would be a bullish signal for me, and I wouldn't mind trying to pick up some entries on that double bottom to swing it back into resistance. But at the moment, price is not there. We're coming back into supply. We got resistance just above us. If anything, this is now coming back into bearish territory, where potentially we could still see the market sell off again. So especially if you're intraday, kind of like hourly chart, 30-minute chart, I'll be keeping an eye on some selling opportunities. Of course, the market is looking very bullish now. No real indication of us turning around at all, pretty much. So have to stay patient and wait for that to develop. If, of course, we continue to rally through, then there's not much we can do with that. You don't want to be jumping into any buys now. The trade is very much underway. So I would only be looking to sell in these areas. So keep an eye on that. Potentially could be some nice downside this afternoon or maybe for the rest of the week. But for a long idea, I do need price to be back at support, preferably a double bottom at those lows. Or even if we go further, that would be great too. But at least a push back down to those areas if I am going to jump into any longs there for euro. But again, the long-term bias is still a swing back to 1.156. Pound USD, same situation here as well. Nice reaction, seen some upside, but again, I am still looking for a bit more downside for this one, and we are coming back into a very interesting area where potentially another low high could form. We had the high here, the higher high, then we had a lower high, and then potentially, are we going to get another lower high here? We could do. We're in a nice area for it, kind of coming back into this trend line area, or yeah, we are coming back into that trend line area. And this would be the area which I would expect momentum to come back in. If price was to continue to rally through this, well, then I wouldn't be looking to sell pound USD anymore. We're probably going to push back into resistance at that point, and then we'll go from there. Maybe we reject the resistance, maybe we break through. We'll monitor that. But at the moment, coming back into this trend line area, I like the bullish move we had this morning. It was very, very bullish, potentially, stopping out any early sellers who would have got in with some stops above the high there. That would have shake them out the position. If we could see some strong selling pressure come in now, I think that would be a good entry. Stops in a good place, and risk reward is looking pretty good. If you can get a swing back into support here, could be looking at 1 to 2, potentially 1 to 3. Depends how the entry looks, but in terms of risk reward, looks pretty good. And if you can respect that area, I would expect a low high to form. But of course, the candlesticks will be very, very important, because if we see another strong close to the upside, well, that completely invalidates that sell bias. As of now, we kind of just closed into the trend line, so we'll see how that develops. But I think this is a really nice place to be looking for selling opportunities. Not necessarily selling just yet, no confirmation, but looking for selling opportunities in this area. If the DXY is going to find support there, then we could see pound USD turn around as well. Aussie dollar, however, is looking very bullish. I think Aussie is quite strong right now as well, but this one has found support down at these lows here and has absolutely rocketed to the upside. So Aussie dollar, I wanted to see a bit more of a pullback for this one, so it was never really a trade for me to take. We came back into the low end of the channel. I know we've bounced from there, but I always wanted price to break out of that channel to go and take out some of these weaker lows, mainly because the market is quite overextended. So I wanted to see a bit of a relief before we do push the upside. I was looking around 0.63, 0.62. That's some areas where I would be happy to get into some longs. But unfortunately, Aussie dollar's not playing ball. We're looking very bullish right now. We're almost back at highs. I think unless we see some really strong USD, or maybe Aussie takes a bit of a breather, we might just rally through this. But there's no opportunity there for me anyway. The market's very corrective. I wouldn't look to follow that trend anyway. So if I'm going to get into a trade here for Aussie dollar, I need price to come back into support, preferably speaking, back into this zone here. As of right now, I'm not seeing much of an opportunity. Maybe we struggle at resistance and sell off there potentially throughout the day. So that could be an intraday idea, back into resistance, higher end of the channel. That could be a nice short there from an intraday perspective. But I'm very much bullish, looking to swing this to the upside because that's where I expect the bigger move to be. I expect Aussie to really push away. So I was just trying to find that higher low. Potentially this is the higher low here, but it was never really fitting my criteria for an entry. So yeah, Aussie dollar, we'll see what happens with this one coming back into a major high. So if you are on the intraday level, I think that could be some quality shorts there if we can see some rejection. So far, not much, but that could change this afternoon. But for the buys, I think that ship might have sailed already. I forgot dollar CAD. Let me go to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD looking a tad bearish this morning as well. I think this is coming back to a nice place for a buy, to be honest. Back into some structure on the left here, which gave us that last kind of sell. Now price is potentially coming back to use it as support. So again, I think this is a nice area to consider some long opportunities. We're starting to slow down, which is a nice sign as well. We're coming a bit more corrective. If price can reject this well, perhaps a double bottom, I think that'll be a nice place for an entry. And again, targets, nothing too complicated. Back to the swing. High there at 1.4, I think makes a load of sense. Again, long term, very bearish on dollar CAD. I think there's a lot more downside to be had with this one. I'm looking at the major highs. 1, 2, well, of course, that's the low. Next lower high, next lower low. I'm looking for another one for another swing to the downside. A couple areas I'm looking for that to happen at. This support level here being 1. That's support level being 1, and this area being another one as well. But you can see we even just missed out on that zone there too. So I still do anticipate more upside for dollar CAD because I expect a bigger retracement, especially with such a big move. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean price has to do that before we can continue. Price might just suddenly be very bearish. We might continue falling. That could be the case. But we'll see what price does with this level, because if we respect it well, then yeah, we could probably see another retracement, another push higher. That could be a nice long opportunity there for dollar CAD. If of course we remain bearish, price cracks through the level, I'd probably say keep an eye on this area here too. But if that cracks as well, then yeah, maybe dollar CAD is going back to lows. But this is again still what I would deem as a counter trend setup. You know, price has had this kind of relief here. Now looking for the continuation of it. I think this is still a good play. Risk reward looks pretty good as well. So dollar CAD, I'll keep an eye on those two levels, 1.39, 1.386. In terms of the USD, this one as well looking pretty bullish. Similar situation to Aussie dollar. Again, didn't really give me the entry I was looking for. I know price did come back and tested the high here, which was a nice reaction, but I was never really a big fan of the double top, and I wanted to see a much bigger retracement, especially when the swing was as big as this. If I do whip out the Fibonacci from the low to the high, 50% is still all the way down there. So it was never really a larger pullback, and that's primarily where I focused most of the time. I normally look for bigger pullbacks, not really shallow pullbacks. But if price was to come back down, respect it again, I may entertain that, because now we're seeing some really strong rejection at that low. We've only tested it once. If you can do it again, that would be a strong sign that support is probably going to hold and turn around, and that would entice me for a buy. So the double bottom would interest me. I know it's not quite back at the 50 on the fib, but because we're showing really strong signs of rejecting that support level, I can sacrifice that for the trade. At the moment, of course, price is looking very bullish. I'm not really seeing a good short opportunity. I know we're coming back into some supply on the left here, but nothing of real significance to me. So I would stay away from this one, to be honest. I think in terms of the sells, if you're looking to try and catch some dollar strength, I think euro and pound look a lot better than Aussie and NZD. I think they're looking quite strong right now, actually. And then over to gold. So gold, last time I checked, didn't really do too much. Yeah, just very, very flat. We do have some strong areas of support below us. I'm looking to see if we can push back into 3160. Really strong high, big push down. Since then, we broke through with a lot of momentum, and price hasn't come back to retest that yet. So I do think after the fact that we have put a lower high in, of course, in comparison to the high over there, I do feel like we're likely to take out this low here. So I do think a push down here is likely. And then from there, we might see some nice buying opportunities. For me, gold as a whole is still very bullish. bullish market. There is no major rejection. I know we're failing at the highs there, which is why I'm kind of expecting a deeper pullback. There's no kind of big break of structure, any serious bearish momentum yet. So I'm not really in panic mode for gold just yet. If we can come back into an area like this, reject it well, I think that's still a smart place for a buy. Whether we get all the way back to the all-time highs over there, I think is that's up to gold at the end of the day. But I think this is a smart place for a buy. It could be a very large bull flag kind of pattern. There's your impulse, correction 1, correction 2. Possibly might see a continuation there. Even if we go halfway and then roll over, I think it's still a smart place to position yourself long, capitalize on a reaction, whether that's a pushback to the all-time highs or halfway or a third of the way. That's up to the market, and then you just have to manage your trade accordingly. And then you got silver, which again, still not a big fan of the price action here. I view this pretty much as a range, so it's just staying away from the price action. Then you could probably argue that all of this is a big range as well. So yeah, price action for silver has been on the diabolical side of things, just not really showing a lot of momentum or consistent momentum. We did have a big move down there and a big move back up, but it's not really going anywhere. So with silver, I want price to push down if I'm going to find some buying opportunities back into clear levels of daily support around these areas. So 31, 29, those would be areas which I'll be more happy to long and confident to potentially hold that trade for a number of days if things go well. But yeah, overall silver very, very flat. Like I said, long-term bullish bias hasn't really changed. I still think we're going to take out these highs at some point, but I kind of want price to push down first before that happens, so I can get some more appropriate entries and stop losses as well. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with USD. Still quite bearish as a whole, so that's why I see the bigger move to be. But I'm looking to see if we can still get potentially some dollar strength in some USD pairs at some interesting areas where we could see some opportunities. But it's up to price to invite us into the trade. For pound USD's case, I think it's a nice place to short. Potentially we could see a lower high, but we need to see some strength from the bears. We need to see some really strong rejection. At the moment, not really seeing that. The market's looking very, very bullish. So, of course, if that remains, we're probably going to break to the upside and continue higher. So, at that point, there is no short. But should we see maybe a big wick, a strong bearish engulfing candle, well, that will be the sign that, okay, we are respecting this area. And there could be a nice short there, potentially. So, it's going to be up to pound and, well, it's going to be up to dollar, really, to show us if we are going to respect these areas and potentially if we are going to see some dollar strength come into play. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the USD pairs. What's up, people? What's up, Dmar? Welcome to the stream. Poppy, what is up? Leave a like, appreciate it. If you guys are enjoying the stream, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel. It does really help out, and of course, make sure you do hit the bell as well, so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. But I do really appreciate everyone who has liked the stream. It does really help out. Morning, Ivan. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. CAD buy. We are at, yep, I had a quick look at the yen pairs. We have seen a bit of downside, but I think it's probably just retracement for us to keep going higher. CAD does look interesting. I'll go through that in a second. TP 106.2, okay. App Ronnie, CAD buys as well. Okay, so it looks like CAD is pretty popular. I will take a look at CAD. Okay, so let's go through CAD. No problem, Mo. Happy to help. I enjoy the stream, so it's a win-win. But I'm glad the streams are helping people and find them useful. That is the goal of them. So I'm glad it's helping. But no problem. If you guys can just drop a like, then that would mean a lot to me. Okay, so we'll go through CAD. So with the yen pairs, of course, they've been pretty. They've actually been pretty bullish for the past few days since kind of midweek or the start of last week anyway. No, yeah, midweek last week we've been rallying. Of course, this morning slash yesterday evening they've been looking a tad bearish, especially in CAD Yen. In CAD Yen's case, I feel like CAD is a bit weak at the moment, so I feel like a lot of CAD pairs are benefiting from the CAD weakness at the moment. But yes, I think this is coming back to a nice place for a buy. The way I look at CAD Yen right now, it looks to me that price is bottoming at this low here. And really struggling to break through. We've had numerous tests at this level. Of course, we had the original first test over there, second, third, fourth, since the low, of course, over there, since the wick low. And since then, price has rallied to the upside and has taken out the high here. Technically breaking some structure as well, because this high here gave us this low, which just about pierced the low here as well. So I do feel like if we are going to start to shift, this is a good time for us to play some buys and capitalize on potentially a trend continuation. So we are pulling back into some structure right now. There is a gap here as well, which price could be looking to go and fill. There is a high here, which looks like we're pulling back into now. So I would suggest anywhere between 104.2 and 104.9 could be a very smart place for a buy. Of course, at the moment, momentum looks very, very bearish. So I would be not looking to jump in just yet, because who knows, maybe that momentum keeps dumping for the rest of the day, so you got to be cautious of that. But if we can slow down a little bit, maybe provide some nice wicks, perhaps a double bottom, it could be a nice buy perhaps later today or maybe early tomorrow. But yeah, I think this is a smart place for a buy. You got the break of structure to the upside, and now price is pulling back into an area of demand, structure. This is where we had a brief pause in the market before we rally at the start of the week, and potentially could go fill the gap as well whilst rally. So on paper, I think this is a very smart place for a buy. We've been pretty consistent with the higher lows since the low here. So you had the low there originally, then you had the higher low, of course another higher high, another higher low, another higher high. So perhaps it's time for another higher low, for again another higher high. If the market is going to reverse here, this is a big double bottom for us to turn around, well, that would be a smart place for us to get in and capitalize on that move. So yeah, I think CAD Yen is a nice place for a buy. I've had a look at the yen basket as well. To me, that's looking pretty bearish as a whole. I think there is still a lot more downside for the yen basket. I know we're rallying this morning, but we kind of broke out of this channel here, and that kind of sets the tone for me. And as we pull back, we've got some structure just above us here, which if we can respect, I feel like that's a great place for a short for the yen basket and for a continuation back down. It looks like we're kind of respecting support here on our left, which is kind of giving us that rally. But we broke out that channel there. I find it difficult to see the yen continue that rally. Could do, but I feel like this is the more probable trade. So we'll see how price reacts for support there. That could be a nice short there for the yen. So if the yen's going to keep falling, the yen basket going to keep falling, that means yen is going to be weak, and of course that will drive up the yen pairs. So CAD yen, pound yen, euro yen, they should be pushing to the upside. So yeah, CAD yen I think looks like a smart buy, to be honest. You said take profit 106.2. Let me have a quick look. 106.2. Okay, so basically back at the high. Yeah, I think that's a sensible target as well. Not looking for anything too crazy. If the market is going to continue this bullish structure, well, you would expect us to get back to the high. So naturally, that would always be a good target to have. So yeah, I do second that. I do like the idea. I do like the bias. I do like the location of where price is coming into. It makes a lot of sense. As long as we can keep up this bullish structure here, I feel like that is always going to be a smart place for a buy. If we do break through that area, then of course I would back away. JD, analyze NASDAQ. Is it time for a pullback? Okay, I'll have a look. What's up, CS Integrated? Welcome to the streamer, man. Hope you are well. Good morning, or afternoon or evening. Okay, let me have a look at the Nasdaq. So yeah, the market is looking very, very bullish. I would suggest it would be time for a pullback sooner or later. It's always difficult to say when the pullback's going to happen because we could always see another push higher. We could always go a little bit further before the pullback does happen. So that's why I'm not always a big fan about going counter trend, because it's a bit more difficult to take. Or at least you don't want to be the first person into the trade. You know, at least wait for price to show some sign of downside and then hop into a trade. It makes things a little bit easier. But yes, I would suggest the pullback is pretty imminent here with the NAS. We've had two very strong rallies since the week started. The gap to the upside followed by that rally. Then we had a brief pause. Then we had another rally there as well. So the market's had two very distinct, very bullish drives. So the market isn't going to keep doing this forever. It's likely going to have a pullback at some stage. How big of a pullback, how long for? Again, those are questions difficult to answer beforehand. I think in terms of a bullish standpoint, this looks like a really nice area for a buy. You know, price had a pause there. We saw a lot of momentum come from there. The market's looking very, very bullish on the higher time frames. We're comfortably above the 200 SMA. We have completely broken structure here on the left as well. You know, this is a very, very bullish market now in the higher time frames. We have completely reversed, you know, this bearish structure now. We've broken to the upside. So I'm now expecting more of this all the way back to the highs. So as a whole, I do think Nasdaq is looking very, very bullish. So I'd only really be looking for the buys because I expect that to be the bigger move anyway. Yes, the market is due a pullback, but we could always see another push up before that pullback happens. So it's always difficult to time. I think the buys are looking like the safer move and probably the easier move to catch as well. And the move which I feel like can go a lot further too as well. If this area doesn't hold and we have a deeper pullback, well, there is the gap here still in the market. And of course, some structure here as well around 20,200. Not only do we have potentially a gap to fill, but you've got some structure we can pull back and retest as well. And that probably will give us maybe even a retest of the 200 moving average, which will be a very nice level of support on the daily chart as well. So there's a lot of confluence down here at 20,300, we'll call it. But equally, if the market's very, very bullish, we might only get something like this before we do continue. But in terms of targets, long-term targets anyway, yeah, I'm expecting a push back to the swing high, 22,227, roughly. So yeah, NAS very, very bullish. My expectation is a lot more upside. Pullbacks, I think, are likely. But I think the buys are the much better trade, to be honest. So yeah, keep an eye on those two areas. We could see a lot more upside in the near future for NAS. What's up, Hamayun? Probably saying that very, very wrong, but welcome to the stream, Euro USD. Okay, we'll take a look. I'll go through my watch list shortly. So yeah, Euro USD looking very, very bullish right now. We are coming back into an interesting area where potentially we could sell off. We have these prior swing highs, 1, 2, 3, potentially could be forming a fourth. I did say yesterday that I'm expecting a bit more downside for Euro before we do push up. I'm still very bullish long term with Euro. I do think eventually price is going to push back to highs there and probably further as well. But I wanted to see a bit more downside. Now, we've had a bit of a rally. USD is looking pretty weak. So, of course, Euro's pushed up, Pound's pushed up, other USD majors have seen reactions accordingly. But now we're coming back into resistance where potentially we could sell off. I talked about this supply area where potentially price might sell off from there. Doesn't look like price is respecting that area too much at the moment. So I would shift my focus more so to this level here where we have price support, which again could be flipped as resistance as it was not too long ago. If it does start to rally through that and especially takes out the high there, then you're probably looking at a very bullish Euro and a continuation back to highs. But as we pull back into this area, this is now bearish territory and where potentially we could look to sell off again. So for Euro, long-term bullish, but again, if I am going to find a buy for this, I need price to be back at support anyway. So I do need price to push back down to get back to support if I am going to take a long here. But if we are going to see that move, I do think there could be some nice opportunities on an intraday time frame, like an hourly chart, maybe even a 30-minute chart to take it back down. At the moment, things are still looking pretty bullish, but if you can see some wicks, strong bearish engulfing candles, that could potentially be a nice short for a swing back into support there. And then we'll go from there. But I do think the bigger move is higher, but we've already seen a rally there, so it's difficult to get into any buys now unless we do come back down into support where we can find a nice entry, put a nice stop loss, and actually take advantage of that trade anyway. But we'll see what we can do in these areas, because potentially we could see a push down. Same thing with pound USD as well. You know, price has been very, very bullish. We rallied into an area where potentially a low high could form. We got one over there, second, third. Again, if we are going to sell off, this is where we want to see rejection. At the moment on the hourly chart, things are still looking pretty bullish, but again, things can change pretty quickly. This could be a bullish candle, but by the time it does close, it might be a big wick. So we want to keep an eye out to see how price develops at these areas. If, of course, we just continue bullish and rally through the area, well, then there is no trade to be had, or at least a sell trade to be had. At that point, I think we're likely to push back into resistance, and then we'll go from there. But pound, again, is a pair which I've been looking to buy. It did respect this area here pretty well, but it was never really something I was liking with the way prices retraced. I wanted to have a deeper, more kind of complex retracement before getting long on pound, but we've had a very bullish run there. So yeah, we'll see what price does at this area. Potentially there could be some sells on the way back down. I think risk reward looks pretty good. If that was to sell off, you know, back into support there, probably further than that as well. I think that looks like a nice trade. But we'll go from there. Of course, it will depend on what the dollar does. If the dollar can find support here, or does it just keep falling? Cathello, probably saying that wrong, but pound CHF, okay, we'll take a look, no problem. Andrea, pound USD, so yeah, as I've just mentioned with pound, if price can respect that trend line area, I think that's a really nice place for a short, and potentially you could see price push back into support there. So there could be a nice bearish swing to be had, just like we had over here, over there, potentially again a third time. If, of course, price just rallies through that, well, we're probably going to push back into resistance at that stage, and then we'll go from there, because maybe we do get a big breakout of this, or maybe price struggles and we come back down. We'll have to wait and see, but for now, this is an interesting area for pound, especially if you can find some entries like the hourly or 30 or even maybe 15-minute chart, if you really want to maximize your risk reward. Pound CHF, I'll take a look at next. Wilhelm. No, I have not looked at dollar CHF yet. I will go through that, looking for buys once that gap is filled. Okay, I think I know what you're looking for there. But yeah, I will go through dollar CHF for you. Ivan, Aussie, New Zealand dollar, short 30-minute time frame, looking good to me. Bit weird head and shoulders though, but price is about to break the neckline. Okay, might retest it to get the two touches left, right. Okay, let me go through pound Swiss, dollar Swiss, and I'll take a look at Aussie, New Zealand dollar. So pound CHF is in an interesting area for a short. I definitely agree with that. But as I spoke a lot about this one yesterday, there was a lot of people requesting pound CHF yesterday, which is interesting. But yeah, we have pulled back into some nice structures. So I can see why people are interested in pound CHF. We pull back into some healthy support. We had a big move, perhaps we're breaking and retesting it to continue. So that could be the case. I don't like pound CHF because it's just a big range, to be honest. We're just up, down, up, down. There's no kind of real trend, unless if you look at the higher time frame trend, yes, that is bearish. But for the past 3 years at least, we've been very, very flat there. So I'm not a big fan of the price action for pound CHF. I do admit we are coming back into a nice level, but based on how price is moving, I wouldn't expect us to suddenly have a massive sell-off here. I feel like we might push down. I think the best we can maybe get is a push back into this kind of area. Judging how prices move recently, I feel like we probably will get a more prolonged pullback anyway. Before we even if we do continue, I feel like that's likely to happen. before we do get that big continuation. So with pound Swiss, with that way price is moving, I think this is a nice place for a short, yes, but I would have targets initially down here at 1.104, and then maybe if things go very well, second target down here at 1.09260. So I feel like, yes, nice place for a short, coming into a big level on the daily/weekly time frame. Stops above the high make a lot of sense. This rally here would have taken out any prior stop losses above the high there. So I feel like, yes, pound CHF definitely a smart place for a short, smart place for a take profit, but I'm just not expecting a big swing. I could be wrong, maybe it does happen, but judging how prices move recently, I feel like looking for a big swing like that is a bit optimistic, but something back into here or back into here, a bit more realistic, and I feel like probability is on your side there. So yeah, pound CHF, smart place for a short. In terms of an entry, you could wait for the 4-hour candle to close to see how momentum is looking. Still got 3 hours before that does close, so I think patiently waiting for that could be a smart move, because who knows, in 3 hours we could pull back and leave another wick, and then the setup's not looking too great anymore. So I'd wait for that candle to close at least. But yeah, smart location for a trade, and there's a couple of areas we can look at to take some profits at. Dollar CHF, again with this one, another USD pair. I do think the bigger move to this one is still to the downside, so long term I am pretty short bias. I do think price can move all the way back down to this area here, which is 0.78, 0.72. I think that's the long-term target for dollar CHF, but I do want to see a bit of a pullback before we do expect continuation. I've talked about a couple of areas where we can potentially pull back into to see that lower high before continuing. At the moment, price, of course, had a bit of a rally. We have just about pushed back above the low here. So I wonder, can we use this as support to potentially continue this newly found bullish structure? Of course, pushing back into resistance here, pushing back into the gap down the left. I think it's a very smart place to be looking for a buy here for dollar CHF. If we can see some wicks, some rejection, maybe a nice double bottom, I think that is a really smart place for a buy, at least back into resistance, but potentially a lot further as well. And then from then onwards, maybe you can start looking for the shorts again to take it all the way back down into some monthly levels of support. But yeah, I feel like we're coming to a make or break area here right now with dollar Swiss. If it does rally through this aggressively and starts to respect the resistance, well, then I feel like we're probably just going to roll over anyway. If we can respect support here, well, I think it's a great place for a buy. Not only is price filling the gap, it's also testing a really nice structure, which also lines up with the wick over here on the left as well. So it's a very smart place for a buy. Just need to see the reaction. Of course, the market looks like it's currently bleeding at the moment, so I would not be jumping into any buys just yet. But if you see some wicks forming, which can definitely happen, a strong shift in momentum, maybe some strong bullish engulfing candles coming into play, well, that changes things, and that will provide a nice entry to go along there. So definitely an area to keep an eye on. I think all eyes basically on the dollar to see what it does at this area. Does the dollar respect this level here, or does it break through? I feel like if the dollar does end up respecting this level, well, you probably will see a nice swing on pound, nice swing on dollar CHF, a nice swing on dollar CAD, Euro USD. If the dollar just collapses straight through, well, we're not going to see those swings. So we're coming into some interesting areas there. Aussie, New Zealand dollar, let's take a look for Ivan. So AUD not my favorite pair, but definitely going to keep an eye on this one. So Aussie, New Zealand dollar, we've pulled back pretty well. Have we come back to retest that support level? Or have we just missed it? Yeah, probably just missed it by the pip. But more or less, we've had a pullback of that bearish leg there to a healthy degree. Is price now potentially forming a lower high to continue selling off? That could be the case. We've got these distinct previous lower highs, 1, 2. Is this going to be a third one? Ivan, you said you're looking for a short in the 30-minute time frame. A bit weird head and shoulder though, but price is about to break and retest the neckline together. Okay, let's jump to 30. Okay, I think I see the head and shoulder pattern you're talking about. So you got the left head and then that's your right shoulder. Bit of a weird neckline though. I mean, I probably wouldn't even classify that as a head and shoulder pattern, to be honest. The way I'll kind of look at it is just the market's in this bullish channel here. And if we can manage to break out of that, that to be would be a big signal that we're about to turn around, because market's been correctively moving to the upside. When we are doing this, again, it's a sign that the market's tiring and potentially getting ready to sell off. Looks like we might be going through the sell-off right now. Well, if we can get the breakout, we can even take a trade on the breakout, or wait for price to come back and retest some structure, or even up there as well. You know, if we can get a solid break through that, well, then some pullbacks into any of these areas could be a nice place for a short and a stop loss above. And then, yeah, perhaps a nice swing to the downside. Yeah, I probably wouldn't classify that as a head and shoulder pattern, really. I mean, I can understand why you would, you know, left head, right shoulder, but because it has actually wicked through the high, it's technically created a higher high, even if it is with a wick. So I personally wouldn't. Again, head and shoulder or not, we're both looking at that as a reversal kind of setup, as price potentially putting a high there in the market. So we're looking at the same thing, just kind of classifying it differently, really. So it's not really a big deal. I think the key thing for me anyway is kind of price breaking out this channel. If we can see momentum continue there, I think that's the most significant thing with Aussie New Zealand dollar right now. And if that sustains, well, some pullbacks after that, or even just the short and the breakout could be a nice trade. If you are going to short the breakout, then I think stop losses would have to be above the high there, which would skew risk reward a little bit, but it'll give you the best chance of actually seeing that trade through. So yeah, I do agree. I think there could be some nice downside there. Yeah, I think the channel break will be the most significant. What's up, Ahmed? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Looking for a pullback around 1.107. Bounce each other, and I'll try and buy. Okay, are you looking for buys? Okay, I'll have a look at that. Oh, okay, using Oanda looks a little bit different. Okay, let me I mean, it's pretty much the same though. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is different. It is different. The support there looks different. But yeah, I mean, probably from Oanda's perspective, I'll probably just classify that as consolidation and price breaking out the consolidation. So again, same thing really, head and shoulder or consolidation. The key thing is that prices see momentum through the consolidation there. And now we're looking for potentially price to retest that and continue. And again, the key thing is that we're also breaking out of this ascending channel there as well. And that again sets the standard that, okay, price is likely to keep falling. So it's the same idea really. Head and shoulder, consolidation, same thing really. It's just the idea that we're looking for price to not go any higher than that point and turn around. So yeah, I don't mind the trade there. Seeing a lot of momentum at the moment. Looks like Aussie seems to be a lot weaker than NZD, or yeah, we're seeing a lot of momentum at the moment. Anyway, I'll have a look at that pound CHF long opportunity. Ahmed, yes, I will take a look at UJ there as well. So looks like we're seeing some momentum in the market at the moment, guys. Seeing some moves there. Anywho, so pound CHF pull back around 1.10074. 1.10074. Okay, so around there. And then I'll buy and take profit 1.123. Okay, looking for pretty big swing here. 6.9. That's around there. So you're looking to enter here and then take a buy into there. Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. I feel like the market still has a lot more corrective upside momentum to see, because we've had this big sell but they didn't really come to much. Price just came back into the low. So I feel like we're probably going to push to the upside anyway. And I feel like you're entering in a relatively smart place. Of course, your stop loss will dictate whether the trade works or not, because you could have a potential stop loss all the way underneath here, and that will give you kind of the maximum room for the trade to potentially work out. You could have a stop loss, in there somewhere, which of course would make things a lot tighter, but of course will improve your risk reward. So that'll be up to you. But in terms of the area, I think it would be a smart place for a buy. I do think price is likely to see more upside as well. I think we can probably come back and retest this kind of consolidation there, where all that momentum came from. I think we can see a push back into 1.13. So the target you have at 1.12369. I feel like price is eventually going to get there. I feel like your entry is in a relatively smart area as well. Not sure where your stop loss is, but again, if you do get stopped, I can always re-enter. And if you're looking to have your stop loss in a very safe place, you could put underneath here. Yeah, that will skew things in terms of the risk reward. But still probably looking at 1 to 2 roughly back into the high there. So it's definitely not the worst trade in the world at all. So I think that looks like a nice entry there. So yeah, I do agree with that bias. I do agree with that bias. I feel like pound CHF still has room to the upside. Okay, so I'll go take a look at UJ next for Ahmed. So I think I'll go through the rest of the yen pairs. Haven't looked at them yet. So in terms of dollar yen, looking very bearish this morning. Yen pairs have been in a bit of a pickle, seeing some downside. Dollar yen is coming back to a nice area for a buy though. If we can see price respect this area, I think this is a smart place for a buy, and potentially another higher low to form. You've got originally the low here, then you've got another higher low, of course creating a new high, then price pullback, new higher low, and perhaps this could be the next area. So if we can see price respect this, I feel like that's a smart place for a buy, and targets back at the high there as well, because dollar yen has of course come back from a very, very big level of support. Taking this level across here, you can see massive support once, twice, the third time as well. Long term, I do think the bigger move is still to the downside. I'm looking at this kind of massive area of resistance here. I do think price can potentially come into this area and struggle and potentially roll back over again. I'm looking at the high here, that big drop. Looking at the second high there, that big drop. Now I'm looking at the third high for another big drop there as well. So I'm waiting for development in this area, but I'm not looking for price just to tap and then drop. I'm waiting for us to kind of spend a few days there first before we do sell. So I am still looking at a bit more upside before maybe we do get the next big drop. We have reacted with the level initially, but now we're coming back into support. We're also filling the gap there. Same situation with CAD Yen. I feel like this is a really smart area for a buy. Of course, we have to see how price reacts to invite us into the buy. It's not a situation where I would say just buy because price is there. Absolutely not. If we could see some wicks, strong bullish engulfing candles, maybe a double bottom, that would invite us into the trade, and that could be a nice setup there. At the moment, we are still looking pretty bearish, and for all we know, price could very much continue to drop through that. So we need to see the rejection for there to be a quality setup. At the moment, that simply isn't the case. So wait for that to develop. But yes, there could be some nice buys there for dollar yen. And we're seeing this setup kind of across the board here. CAD yen looking like we're seeing that move. I think New Zealand yen, we're seeing some nice downside as well. Maybe not as much as like a CAD or a dollar. I think CAD and USD are pretty weak right now. But we are seeing some downside here. I feel like if you can come back and respect an area like this, we still got that gap there in the market. Price could potentially go and fill as well, or at least attempt to fill. I feel like this is a smart place for a buy. New Zealand yen recently just took out the high here, as we can see. This was the last high, which gave us this massive drop here. So technically, we've just gone and broken through some structure. and that could mean a lot more upside in the long term for New Zealand yen. We've been pretty consistent with these high lows, so if we were to push back down into this area, well, I would expect another high low to form. And we got some really nice confidence there. Not only got the break of structure, we got prior support, prior resistance, turn support. Got the trend line there as well. So I do think we can see more upside there for New Zealand yen. Aussie yen, I think we're in the same situation. Yes, but we haven't taken out the high, I don't think, have we? No, we haven't. It would be nice if we did, but still, I do think we're likely going to do that. So again, if Aussie yen can pull back into this area, I still think that's a really nice place for a buy. And then potentially you can go and break structure. You can see how consistent Aussie yen has been with these high lows. So I think there's a good chance of us seeing another one. And perhaps from there, we can actually see price go and break structure and take out the highs. So as a whole, I think the yen pairs still have more upside. I'm looking at the yen basket. It looks like it still has more downside. So that means yen is still likely to be a bit weak. And that could still drive us higher. Sunny gold 15-minute chart. So gold 15. So yeah, coming into the week was talking about some shorts here for a push down. More or less saw that move. Didn't really have a deep test of it, but the market has well, not quite confirmed yet because you haven't seen new lows, but it looks to me that price is forming another lower high here to continue down. I mapped out these prior highs 1, 2, 3, 4, and looks like that's potentially your fifth there. We do have support just underneath us here. I do think price is likely to break through that. I'm looking at price pushing back down here, mainly because gold did put a lower high in comparison to the high over there. So that's kind of like a first sign that potentially gold is tiring and we might be looking at a slightly bigger correction. There's potentially a bit of a bull flag pattern on our hands here. So if that is the case, I do feel like we can push back down into that level. So in terms of some shorts for gold, what would be nice is if we can push back into resistance. So if price can push back into the high there, I feel like that would be a smart place for a stop loss, smart place for an entry. Maybe tap a little bit deeper into this zone here. That's where we had a big consolidation last week. And then price dropped very aggressively to the downside. If we can pull back, revisit that area, well, I think that'll be a smart place for an entry. And try and take advantage of that drop back into support. And maybe back into that level there as well, which we just spoke about. So I still think there's a drop to be had there for gold. At current price, I wouldn't say there's anything of interest really with the current price. To be honest, we're in the middle of a range here really. So I wouldn't try and do anything with that at all. Not a great place for a sell, not a great place for a buy. It's just asking for trouble. But if we can rally back into resistance, well, that does allow us to find some good entries if, of course, we see some healthy rejection there. But yeah, for gold, I think there's another drop to be had for us. So looking for downside. Of course, the drop could actually happen now as well. We could just drop here. We don't necessarily have to push up first before the sell. The only reason why I want us to push up is because it's just a better place for an entry, a better place for a stop loss, and it will help with risk reward as well. But of course, we very much could sell off from here. But I wouldn't advise for entries there. I think that's a bit more kind of chasing the trade rather than waiting for the trade to come to you, which would be something like that. So yeah, that's kind of my take for gold. What's up, Jacarotcho? Hope I'm saying that correctly. Learning a lot from you. That's great to hear. Are you up every day? Yes, I am. Thank you, Mo. From Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. UK time. Every week, Monday to Friday. And I do post analysis on the weekend as well, kind of recapping the week and forecasting the upcoming week as well. What's up, Antonio? Welcome to the stream. Hope you are well. What is good? What is good? Mine looking at ETH. Is ETH doing some? Okay. Ooh, okay. Very, very bullish. Yesterday, I think last time I looked was here somewhere. I didn't see that candle there, but we have kind of retraced most of it anyway. But yeah, Ethereum's still holding ground. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff here. Again, I'm not a big fan of the price action with Ethereum. It's not as straightforward as Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price action is very neat and tidy, nice, pullbacks, kind of nice continuations. Ethereum, I don't know if this one's a bit more troublesome. We broke through that trend line. We also cracked through support. Very, very bearish indication when we did that. We have since recovered that, which is pretty impressive. But I do want to see a bit more upside to really give me the confidence that, okay, this bearish move was perhaps a bit of a glitch here. So, price is still respecting support. Maybe this was a big fake out. If price can really recover that, well, perhaps we might eventually pick up the momentum again and start pushing. And this might just be a fake out and we continue. So I do want to see more upside to really confirm that. Because equally we could be kind of retesting that resistance there to sell off. But that's kind of from a higher time frame perspective. From a more lower time frame, if you can classify the daily as that, there's a pretty big level of support here, which I mentioned yesterday as a nice place for a buy. At the moment, we're approaching areas of supply. This is not really where you want to be looking to enter any buys anyway. If Ethereum becomes quite corrective, this could actually be a nice place for a short, actually. If momentum starts to dry up and maybe form a nice triple top or double top, it could actually end up being a nice short. And then we see what price does at these areas. If we can continue ripping to the upside and staying exponential, well, we could be looking at a very big recovery for Ethereum. And maybe it could be the start of something a lot more. Like I said, if it is that big fake out on the weekly chart, there could, of course, be a lot more upside. But I need to see a price to continue to rally to really confirm that. At the moment, this is a very strong level of supply. It did give us a pretty meaningful move to the downside there. So again, potentially we could see some shorts coming in. The market is looking a tad tired now. So if we can keep this up, stay tired, maybe produce some wicks, double tops, I feel like that could be a nice short there. And maybe some longs as we do approach support again. So I'll keep a close eye on that area. Could be a turning point there for Ethereum. I need a little bit more before I would say that with confidence. Still a little bit early doors, but I can see prices definitely starting to tire. So I'll keep an eye on that. No problem, Sonny. Happy to help. Bitcoin and ETH gives me the same vibes as gold and silver. Yeah, I agree, to be honest. Bitcoin's like your gold, ETH is like your silver, kind of messing around. Still, as a whole, a bullish market. You still expect it to gain value over time. But price action can look a little bit doo-doo sometimes and difficult to trade. But Bitcoin's a bit more sensible. Maybe the more kind of easier to trade one, I would say, and the more bullish one as well. So yeah, I think that's a good analogy, actually. What's up, Pavinator? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Yeah, one moves well and you expect the other to follow suit and ends up disappointed. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it as well. Very, very true. Still waiting for Aussie dollar to hit my zone 0.62. Yeah, I'm waiting for the same move, but I feel like maybe Aussie dollar's kind of left us in the dust a little bit. I don't know if we're going to actually see a bit of a rally now with Aussie dollar. Yeah, exactly. Not sure if it will hit. Yep, I'm hoping with you as well. Again, that's a big part of trading. You have a bias of where you expect the market to go. You have a location of where you want to buy and enter that trade and take advantage of that bias. And then it's up to price to actually get there and actually give you a confirmation to short. If it doesn't get there, well, then there is no trade. maybe you miss out on the move, and that's the case as well. That won't be the case every time, of course not, but that will be a reality from time to time, and you just got to sit on your hands. The key thing is not doing something stupid because of that. A lot of people could be in that same situation, but because it doesn't get there, they feel frustrated. They go trade some random pair for some random trade to kind of make up for it, and that's kind of where you lose money stupidly. So yeah, kind of staying level-headed even when that's happening is an important part as well. But yeah, I have a similar bias. I think Aussie dollar has a lot more upside in the long term. I'm looking at this zone 0.63 to 0.62. Anywhere within that, I'll be happy to take a buy, really. We've been very, very bullish. I'm basically looking for a correction now before we do continue up. Something like a big inverse head and shoulder pattern, if you will. You got the left head and then your right shoulder. And from there, I do think there is a lot of room to the upside. So a very similar idea to yours. Of course, we've had this rally now, the past 24 hours. Is price now going to keep pushing? I don't know. Maybe we respect the highs and maybe we do come back down. That would be very, very nice if it does happen. But again, that's price got a lot to do there before that does come into reality. So we'll see how that develops. I think a big thing to keep an eye on is to see what the dollar does in respect to this level, because if the dollar still continues with these higher lows, we've got 1, 2, 3. If we're going to put a fourth one in and continue to the upside still, well, then that gives us hope for Aussie dollar. That gives us hope. So we need dollar to be doing that. At the moment, it's looking pretty bearish, but tables can turn, so I'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, still a long, long way away. Good morning, Rachel. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're well. Hope you're doing good. Yes, I'm live. Well, not weekends, but Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. UK time. Looking at the 4 hour with GJ. Okay, we'll have a look. What's your bias with GJ? You looking to short it? Looking to buy it? Let me know. I've been looking to sell it, but it just hasn't set up well. We've actually broken structure as well, which is what I did not want price to do as a seller anyway. So that has kept me out of shorts basically. Okay, you're looking to short it. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice place to short, don't get me wrong. We're back at resistance, so that's of course an area which you want to be selling from. But in terms of market structure, I don't want to see price break through a high. If you've got bearish structure like so, what I don't want to see happen is that price take up the high. It doesn't mean we still can't sell off. We could still have a pretty decent sell. Just that I would expect the higher low to form. This could still be a worthwhile trade from the high there to the low there. That could still be a worthwhile position to take. But because of the break of structure, by default, I'm expecting a higher low to form in comparison to the prior low, and then of course a higher high afterwards. If price can stay respecting, market structure, well then I'm expecting us to get back to lows and continue. So that's the trade I'm after. Another lower high in comparison to the previous high. But in this case, we've technically broken through. I know it's not a big break, but it's still a break and it still counts. So with pound yen, I feel like price is going to push down as a correction for us to continue going higher. We've got prior resistance over here on the left. We've got kind of like an area of demand here. We've got the gap potentially price can go and fill. I feel like if we can get back to this area, see some rejections, wicks, bullish engulfing candles, I feel like this is actually a smart place for a buy and a push back up. So sells, yes, I do agree. Nice place for a short back into resistance. And just because of the break of structure, I wouldn't expect us to now sell off completely again like I was expecting originally coming into the week. Now that we've got the break of structure, I'd only expect just a pullback to happen for us to continue higher. And again, nothing's 100%. Just because price broke structure doesn't mean we're 100% guaranteed to push up. Price may still give us that move. That's the thing about trading. Nothing is 100%. But all we have to go by as a trader is probabilities. If price does break structure, well, the probability does lie with the buyers that we are going to continue higher. So at that point, it validates my bullish bias. So this is kind of what I'm expecting with pound yen, more upside longer term. But yes, we're coming from resistance now. Perhaps if we get there again and double top it, that could be a nice short. But once we start coming back to an area like this, well, I think, especially from an intraday bias, I think that's a smart place for a long. Maybe we can drop to the hourly chart, maybe see some rejection there, nice double bottom. I think that would be a nice place for a buy to take pound yen back up again. So yeah, it's been interesting with pound yen. No problem, Rachel, happy to help. I've been looking to short it. The plan for me this week was looking for the retest of the high here, looking for the sell, but no, price gap to the upside of the week open and then flew and broke structure. Same thing with euro yen. I was looking to see if I can short this one. I had some shorts last week, which I was taking out a break even. So I was looking to see if I can jump into some more shorts. But again, with this one, just about breaking structure here, which again has led me to be put off the trade. Doesn't mean you still can't sell off. I think the bigger move for euro yen is still a big sell. But because we have broken structure, I feel like price is likely going to push back to resistance here first, before maybe we do get that big sell. So that's kind of where my focus is now situated to, back at resistance there. But again, we're at resistance anyway now, so shorts are still not a bad idea. It's just I don't expect the big move to happen anymore. So as we come back into structure, we may go and put in higher lows to continue higher. I'm looking at the JPY basket as well. If price respects that as resistance, well, I think we can continue falling as well. If we do recover that, well, that changes things. If we can get back above this area here, then that could be looked as a fake out, but we need to do that first. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the yen pairs. In terms of my watch list, well, I was looking to buy New Zealand CAD yesterday, but it was just far too bullish to find an entry. I was looking to see if I can catch the double bottom. Well, we did form the double bottom. Got my words twisted there. We did get the double bottom, but I missed the entry there. When I woke up yesterday morning, price was already pushing up, so I missed the entry. And of course, we rallied since then. I did say potentially price might hold on to some areas of supply here. Maybe we do push back down into support, and then I can pick up some longs from that regard, but that didn't happen. Price kept pushing. So at this point in time, I do think we're just going to make our way back to resistance here. 0.833, I think that's what price is likely to push towards. I do like the idea of some entries down here. That's essentially where I want to find my entries and put a stop loss below. But yeah, I don't feel like I will get that trade anymore. I feel like with this bullish move now, probably likely to go higher. So New Zealand CAD, I'll still keep an eye on. It still fits the plan, but most likely won't get an entry. Pound CAD is a pair which I'm interested in shorting as well. It's now back at my entry level, so I'm going to see what we can do in regard with this level. Do I see healthy rejection? Do I see momentum shift? Those will be the questions I'll be asking myself before I do take an entry. But the idea is that we've got a high over here, nice drop, another high over there, nice drop, and potentially, price is forming another double top for, again, another big sell. Because what I'm looking at for pound CAD is essentially somewhat of a reversal / just a bigger pullback. The market's been very bullish since the low here of October 2022, and it's been in the bullish trend since then. It hasn't really come out of that, so I do expect us to actually push down at some point. We've taken out some major highs on the weekly chart here, dating back to March 2018. So I do feel like not only is the market quite stretched, we've taken out some big highs, taken out some big liquidity above them. So I do feel like we are due a pullback. So I'm looking to see what we can do on this level here on the 4-hour chart. If we can respect that well, I will look for a short, at least for a pushback into support here. It is counter trend, so I have to be a bit more cautious with my entries and my management of the position. But I will be looking to see if I can stretch the trade back down here. So it will be a case where I probably take a decent chunk of the profits there, then leave the rest to run back into the low, and probably further as well. Because if I am right, if price is forming a bit of a top and we are going to retrace, well, I wouldn't expect it to stop there. I would expect it to come back to support here and probably even break through that as well. So I would definitely consider leaving positions to run even back down there. But again, the reason why I like the opportunity is because the risk reward is high. The potential for this, if it does play out, is very, very high compared to the risk. So I wouldn't mind taking an entry here, potentially taking a loss. If that does happen, it makes sense. If it does play out, well, it could be a big winner, which will account for numerous losses. So that's the thought process here. And we're in a healthy place for it as well. So it really depends what we do here. At the moment, we've just about tapped into the level. So what I'm looking for is perhaps some wicks, if we could start to fire that to the upside, similar to what we did over there. And maybe a nice shift of momentum, a nice bearish engulfing candle from that level. That would be the entry trigger, and stops above the high like so. Then yeah, seeing what we can do back into this level, back into that level. And if things go very well, leave positions to run there. So I'd say pound CAD is at the top of the list at the moment. Of course, I'm going to keep an eye on some of the USD pairs, but I feel like these are more intraday setups. So for example, dollar CAD buys here. I feel like this could be a nice setup, but again, I probably would, if I'm going to trade this, I probably would drop to the hourly chart to trade that if I'm going to take some buys there for dollar CAD. Same thing for Euro USD. I feel like there's some nice shorts here, but again, I would say that's a bit more of an intraday setup. I feel like this is a nice place for a short to take it back into lows here, and possibly further as well. Pound USD, I feel like we're in a nice place for a short as well. Again, I'll probably look at entries there for an hourly chart to take it back down, back into support here and then further. But of course, the main thing I'm going to keep an eye on is to see what we do regards to the dollar. Can the dollar find support here? Can we turn around? That will set the standard, set the tone for the USD pairs. At the moment, nice little wick there with that previous bearish candle, but again, very minimal. Doesn't really mean much significance. We could still very much break through in the next candle. Of course, the current candle is looking a little bit bullish, but it's still got 40 minutes before it does close, so not going to take too much from that, because that could look a lot different in 40 minutes time, but it's definitely at an area. But again, that's all trading is. You have a bias of where you expect the market to go, because the market's either going to go up or down. So it's not like there's 50 different directions of what the market can do. It's either going to go up or down. So once you derive that bias, then you find a location of where you want to trade that. Where does it make sense to actually trade that bias? And where can you get a healthy stop loss as well? And once you can kind of get those two things down of, okay, I expect the market to go in this direction and I want to sell it from here or buy it from there, then it just comes down to entries. So does the market give you an entry for that location? And then, of course, managing the trade, where you're going to get out the trade for a loss and for a win. And that's really trading in a nutshell. And that's what every strategy provides you. How you derive the bias, how you derive your entries, how you derive your location of where you want to enter and where you want to exit, that then comes down to the strategy. But every strategy always has that component, those components, direction, location for entries, and of course your exit plan as well. However you develop that, that's kind of up to you. There's many ways to do that. For me, I'm always looking at support levels, areas of supply and demand. In terms of my entries, keep it very simple with candlestick patterns, engulfing candlestick patterns are my most used entry signals. I love wicks as well. If I could see price provide a lot of wicks into an area, plus give me a nice bullish engulfing or bearish engulfing candle, that's a really nice setup for me. And yeah, in terms of exiting a trade, I'm normally looking at, well, my stop losses are going to be underneath the level I'm trading from. So pretty straightforward. If price breaks for the level, well, I don't want to be in the trade anymore. So stops go underneath the level. And targets are normally targeting either swing highs or maybe significant areas of support and resistance. Most of the time, swing highs or swing lows, because I'm always looking for structure to continue. But if there is a pivotal level in my path, which could definitely turn price against me, I probably will look to secure gains there as well. And then I also do have a trading stop loss component to my management style as well, similar to the idea of pound CAD. If this does really get going, where I do want to kind of just let the trade run and do what it can do, and I'll trail stops with it as well, but only for situations where it makes sense to push trades. Not every trade deserves to be pushed. But yeah, in terms of the watch list, so pound CAD looks good. Like I said, with the USD pairs, I think there's some nice setups there on the hourly chart to be traded. I like pound NZD to the downside, but I feel like I'm not going to get an entry for this one. The idea coming to the week was a test of resistance here, which we were very close to doing on Monday. I thought we were going to push back to resistance there, but we didn't quite. We pushed back down, but we are still respecting support there, so I'm not going to give up just yet. If we can push back into resistance, I am looking at a big sell. Reason being, because I do think the market is quite overbought. We've been in this corrective channel for quite a while, since December 2023. We've just been in this ascending channel, so I do feel like price is going to be hitting a bit of a top soon, and I feel like price is going to break to the downside. So because of that, and especially of where we've been trading, we've taken out major highs from COVID. That was a while ago, but again, we haven't really seen much retracement since then. So I do expect to see the bigger move for pound NZD to be to the downside. As a result, I only really want to be selling this one. Now, most of my trades, I'm focusing on pro trend opportunities, or continuing a trend. But when the trend has continued for a while, especially in FX, because all you have to do is go look at FX markets, and you can see that when we do trend, we don't tend to trend for long. There are exceptions to the rule. Of course, nothing's 100%. The yen pairs have trended for about 2.5 years to the upside. So, of course, trends have been quite prominent with the yen pairs there. But even then, the trend's going to end at some point as well. But again, if I zoom out for you, this is pound NZD. As a whole, the market is very flat. The average price for the market since 1975 is probably about there-ish. The market doesn't really go anywhere. So with that knowledge, if a trend has continued for a while, well, we're probably going to see that trend end soon, and there's probably going to be a pretty big move in the opposite direction. Again, my favorite setup is always following a trend, but it has to be closer to the start of it. So, if the market's been trending to the upside for a while, and I do start to see that reverse, well then yeah, these pro trend setups here are very, very good setups, because the trend has just started. This could continue for a while. It can continue for maybe one more swing before it reverses. I don't know, but these are nice setups. But when the trend has been going on for a while, I don't want to keep buying that, because I know that we're probably going to put a top in soon. And that's the case here with pound NZD. The only thing is that you don't know where it's going to happen. This could be the top for the trend, and now perhaps we do reverse. Or maybe we see one more swing to the upside and then we reverse. Or maybe we see two more and then we reverse. That could be the case. We're not to know until it does happen. But all I know with some confidence is that the bigger move for this one is probably going to be to the downside rather than the trend continuing. So as a result, I want to be focusing on the shorts here. So in terms of a good entry for me, I'm kind of looking at this kind of head and shoulder pattern. So you got the left over there, you got the head over there, and that's your right shoulder. Of course, this is kind of your neckline for the pattern. If price can form that right shoulder there, snap to the downside, break through the neckline of the pattern, but of course break through the channel as well, well, at that point, I feel like we're going to have a really big drop there. So very bearish on pound NZD. I feel like there's a lot of downside to be had. I'm looking at similar opportunities on similar pairs as well. So pound Aussie, of course, a very similar pair to pound NZD. To me, this has got a lot more downside to offer as well. This one's been very, very bullish. Again, we've taken up some COVID highs as well, dating back to 2020. Ever since price has taken out that high, I do feel like price is now likely to retrace. We've been bullish since the low here. Since October 2022, the market's been in a very nice clean trend, but I don't feel like we're probably going to continue this anymore. I feel like we're now going to have a push down. Don't get me wrong, the bigger move could still very much be to the upside. Doesn't mean, okay, because we've been in a trend for a while, we have to now reverse. Absolutely not. But because we have been in trend for a while, we at least probably will see a more prolonged correction, even if the market is going to keep pushing. So this prolonged correction will give us some nice selling opportunities for perhaps some buying opportunities later on. But I do feel like we are going to see a bit more downside here for pound Aussie as well. So again, I'm looking at push at least back to the high here. I do feel like we can probably even test the high there as well. So if I drop to the 4 hour for pound Aussie, as I said last week, a nice trade for this one would be if we can push back into resistance here, test that level. I feel like that'll be a smart place for a short. Something like this, stops above the high and push back into support there. And then of course, if we can continue a bit further, that would be fantastic as well. But that would be a nice trade because we've got the double top there. You know, that gave us the push down, then price from another high, another push down, from support there, another push up, another push down, to kind of get in these lower highs here. So I feel like that would be a nice entry to take to the downside there too. And you're continuing this bearish structure here. So yeah, pound Aussie, same bias as well with this one, same opportunity pretty much, which is basically looking for the double top there. Back into resistance to push down. Pound NZD pretty much looking for the same thing, back into resistance, then a push down. Euro NZD and Euro Aussie, very similar pairs to pound NZD and pound Aussie, of course. These ones I like as well, but the setups aren't as good as the pound pairs, so I'm being a bit more cautious with these. And again, they're probably going to do the same thing anyway, so it's not a situation where I have to try and find a trade with these pairs as well. Because they're probably going to do the same thing, so I don't need to find a trade. It's either, you know, they're all going to work or all going to fail probably. There's no need to me to trade them as well. But again, if I expand to the higher time frames, the same situation. Euro NZD, we've just about spiked through the COVID highs here on the left. I feel like the market's a bit stretched. We can have a bit of retracement. We've got some healthy structure just below us here. I think there's a good chance price does come back to retest that level there of support. This one has been quite corrective, so it's not a situation where I'm looking for pullbacks to jump into a short. If anything, I feel like this would be a nice place for a buy, but I don't expect us to go too far before we do come back down again. And then Euro Aussie, I did have a nice setup for this one last week, but unfortunately didn't quite see it materialize. So I was looking at this support level. We had this high here, nice push down, creating the low, another lower high, another lower low. So I was looking for a push back into resistance here, but unfortunately that was not the case, and price did not get to that level there before the push down. But yeah, overall, very, very bearish market. I like the selling opportunities here. I feel like price can still have a lot more downside. If I expand to the weekly chart for this one as well, this is still a very, very enticing area, which I feel like prices like to get to, especially because we're quite stretched. We had a very impulsive break to the upside. I don't think that price action is quite sustainable, so I do see us coming back down into levels of support before we do push up higher. So yeah, very, very bullish here if you're Aussie long term, but short term I do think we can still see a push down. And that was the setup I was looking for, but unfortunately we didn't quite get that. Maybe we still pull back into that area, so of course I'll keep an eye on that, but I don't think we will. So I'm just going to stay focused on pound Aussie and pound NZD with those pairs there as well. In terms of the CHF pairs, Gutted because I was long on Aussie CHF last week, but again was taking that break even. Unfortunately, the trade would have played out pretty well. I mean, it hasn't quite hit my targets yet. The trade I was in last week, I was looking to target this zone here, but I think there's a good chance price does get there. That was my entry last week. Stops were below the low. We're talking about this on the streams last week. So yeah, I did see a nice rally in my favor originally, so things were going okay. It's not like price ripped in my favor. It was a very kind of corrective run, so I was always a little bit skeptical of that move there anyway. But we took up the highs here, which was the key thing of why I went to break even, because price has now created new structure in my favor. I didn't want this now to becoming a losing trade, so I did move my stops to break even. Unfortunately for me, in this case, of course, we did get stopped at break even before price did continue to rally in my favor. Again, that's the reality sometimes with going to break even. There will be times where price does come back and hit your break even before going in your favor. Break even is never a mechanism used to maximize profits. I've always said this. Break even is not it's not a tool to maximize your profits. It's a tool to minimize your losses. In another alternate universe, potentially Aussie CHF kept falling, and I would be thankful for the break even for mitigating that loss because I'll be out the trade. Of course, in this situation, it did rally, but there's numerous times where break evens do save me from losing positions as well. But equally so, it will take me out of a few winners here and there as well. And that's just the reality of it. Break even's not to maximize profits. If you want to maximize profits, don't go to break even at all. Markets fluctuate. Markets are going to go up and down. There will be times where they will hit your entry to go back up again. So if you really want to maximize profits, don't go to break even, but be prepared to take a few extra losses and be prepared for price to be well into profit, like say for example at this stage, and still potentially sell off again and hit your stop loss. So be prepared for that to happen as well. Not going to break even will give you the maximum room for price to go and hit your targets, but there will be situations where price is halfway, 3/4 of the way, 90% of the way to your target, and then still potentially might roll over again, and you might still take a loss there. So that will be a situation as well, and that's one lesson with trading. It's all about pros and cons. There's never a technique that's going to give you always a pro. If you go to break even, pros are less losses, but con is you will lose out on some wins. If you don't go to break even, pros are more wins, cons are more losses as well. It's just about that balance. So yeah, unfortunately for me, did get to take out break even. I was looking for another re-entry this week. This is where we, of course, open for the week with that gap. But I was looking to see if price can return back into support, respect it again. And I was going to look for a nice double bottom to get back into the trade. So basically on the next higher low, price has been very consistent with all these high lows here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I was looking for number 5, and of course, in hindsight, it was number 5. I was looking to see if we can retest it again. I can find myself an entry to then take advantage of the trade. But yeah, in this case, it didn't give me the entry, so missed out on re-entries there as well. But I do think Aussie CHF is going to keep pushing up now and get back into that zone there. And the reason why I had targets and why I expected that move is simply because Aussie CHF came from all-time lows. And you can see pretty much every time the market does sweep the lows, what happens, we do rally to the upside. That is a pretty consistent fact there of Aussie CHF and New Zealand CHF. Every time a new low is created, market rallies. So we create a new low there as well. Well, there's only one direction I expect price to push into. That's a push back up. So that's where the bullish bias came from. And again, this is a counter trend setup here as well, not pro trend, but because of the context of the situation we're in, the fact that the market is coming from all-time lows, well, I do expect us to push up anyway. So that's why I was looking for the buys and looking to get involved with them. New Zealand CHF, like I said, another pair I was looking to take a buy on as well. The plan this week was looking for a push back into support here. But again, we had the gap at the start of the week, and we pushed back into resistance here, and actually just about saw new highs there too, so it's kind of skewed things up as well. But same situation, I go in the higher time frames, you can see price, every time it creates a new low, it does rally pretty much straight away. So yeah, looking for the same thing there for New Zealand CHF, but unfortunately, again, no entry to jump into it, or at least an entry that fits my criteria, because you can still force some entries, but I wanted to see if I can get an entry right support here, get a stop loss below the low, and then take the trade. Fortunately, not the case. What's up, Ak? Yes, well, we have a profit rule and a floating max floating loss rule. If you go to the website elevatingtraders.com, and if you go to the FAQ page, where it has all the rules there and a detailed description of how they work. But all the consistency rules are not hard rules in terms of if you don't adhere to them, you fail the challenge or lose account. So that they're only soft rules. But yeah, if you go to the website, go to the FAQ page, and of course click on whatever challenge or account you're after, it'll have the rules laid out in full. But again, it's nothing crazy, nothing you hadn't seen before, and again, it just promotes more consistency. No problem. Swing trade, I like to piece of partials. I'm trying to figure the math, how much piece out each time to have the same amount of profits. Do you know the math for this? What do you mean by piece of partials? How much the piece out each time to have the same? I'm confused. Are you talking about how much parcels you should take so that the parcels you take are the same amount? Well, it depends. It depends on the trade. It depends on the trade. Depends on your risk. How much you're risking on the position. Are you risking 0.5? You're risking 1%. You're risking 2% on the trade. It depends how much you're risking on the setup. How much partial you need to take. Again, it's just how much you're risking. How far is the trade run? There's a lot of metrics to take into account here. To be honest, there's no kind of one maths that fits all. It depends how much you're risking. Depends how far you're going to hold the trade for. Depends how much percentage of the partial you're going to take off. There's a lot of moving parts here. I can't just give you a equation that fits all. Again, like I said, the rules are on the website. As long as you don't breach them. Again, even if you do breach them, nothing happens. You can still continue trading. But again, that maths is it really depends on the setup and the risk you use and how long you hold the trade for. So I can't help much. But if you have an example, then I can help you there. No problem. Happy to help. But I'm looking to launch another project as well that I have been working on for the past few months as well, which I'm very excited to reveal to you guys shortly in the next few weeks or so, to do with AI and using automation in trading. I'm a big fan of what AI can do in trading and potentially how it can help us retail traders out. So I have been working on projects using AI for automation, generating trade signals and and also generating different strategies as well. So that will be coming out pretty soon. I'll probably have a landing page and more information regarding that in the next few days. So do look out for that. But very, very excited for it, especially if anyone's looking to see what AI can do with trading, because of course that will be the future. Definitely keep an eye out for that. So keep that in mind. I have more information regarding that probably in the next few days. Yeah, anyway, so in terms of going forward with the rest of the week, I feel like pound CAD is probably the only pair that looks the best to me right now. Maybe some of the USD pairs if I take some intraday setups, but I like the pound CAD the most. I'm going to see what happens with dollar as well. Dollar seems to be reacting pretty well off the low there. How are we doing with some of the other USD pairs? Okay, pound USD just about reacting to that level. Euro USD. So Euro USD looks interesting. I probably want to see price have a deeper reaction. We still got 17 minutes, so a lot can happen, but I feel like this is a smart place for a short for Euro. It would be nice if we had a slightly deeper test of that level, but I can't complain for where price is. I feel like it's a nice area. USD CAD, I feel like we're reacting well there, are we? Yep, seeing some upside there as well. Nice push. I probably would wait for, again, a bit of a double bottom there. It's a nice bullish engulfing candle, but it's nothing significant. It's still kind of moving within this corrective channel here, so I'll be a bit cautious of that. What else? Dollar CHF. Okay, I like dollar CHF. Nice wick down the hourly chart, coming back into that zone there as well. Nice wick on the 4-hour chart too. I mean, this candle still has 2 hours and 16 minutes before it does close, but I think it's in a very sensible place as well for a trade. So, yeah, I feel like USD is starting to reject, and we are starting to see some strength coming in for the dollar as the DXY. Oh, almost hit my cup there. I did hit my cup, but I almost spilt it. So dollar in a nice place as well. Nice wick there on the hourly, but again, still need to see how we close. So dollar is in a nice place for some buys, I must say. Again, I still think the bigger move for the dollar is a push down. I'm looking at the higher time frames here. I do feel like price can still very much sell off, but I'm anticipating a bigger pullback into a zone like this before we do sell off. So a push back into 104, I think would be a nice place for a big short, and a healthy retracement as well. You know, we've been very, very bearish. We've sold off from the highs up here at 110, and we swung all the way down to the low here. You can see the 50 of the fib does line up pretty well with that zone there too. So I would love to see us get back into that 104 area before shorting again. Of course, we don't necessarily have to. The market can do what it likes. If it wants to continue being bearish from here, then that could be the case. But a much healthier trade opportunity would be that bigger pullback into 104 before we do continue to the downside from then onwards. But yeah, at the moment, if we are going to see that push back into 104, there has to be a pretty big bullish swing on the cards there. And rejecting an area like this would be a nice start to that. So need to see how we develop here. If we can respect this area, I think that's a nice place to long. If price does start breaking through, it's not the end of the world. We still do have, you know, pretty much this whole kind of consolidation for a buy. We could still get a slightly deeper reaction than anticipated and still push up. So I'm not going to write off the buys there. It just means that it's not going to be from that level. So I think it's still a decent opportunity, but it's important to see us slowing down and starting to see some reactions now, because we picked up a lot of momentum, indicating there's a lot of bearish pressure right now. But if we can start to see that slow down, some strength from the buyers creep back in, I feel like we can get some really nice setups. Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, I'm not a big fan of these ones though. Yes, Aussie did come back into some resistance, so potentially there could be some nice sells there. But to be honest, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm more fixated on the buys. At least with like pound USD, we've got some bearish structure to play with. At least we've got some lower lows and lower highs here, so it actually makes sense to be selling a little bit more so anyway. I know Aussie dollar's back at resistance, so it still does make sense to sell Aussie dollar too, but at least we've got some structure we're following as well. This, we could still see some new highs, and nothing could look abnormal there. So yeah, Aussie, just not a big fan of the shorts anyway. I'm a big fan of the longs. This is the opportunity I've been talking about for at least 2-3 weeks now, probably longer than that. So just waiting patiently for that to happen. And dollar CHF, again, I like the shorts as well with this one as well. Again, I feel like longs look pretty good too. Nice break and retest there as well. Makes a lot of sense. Back into resistance there. And I feel like there could be a very big swing. But where I feel like the most of the move will be with the shorts here at 0.86. So if I can get a swing back to 0.86, I feel like that'd be a great place to sell from. Even 0.87 as well. And then from there, looking for a big swing back into lows, and then eventually back into the monthly level of support, because that's where I expect price to end up long term. But I need to see a lot more upside first. The firm width require 40% consistency for 3 days. Yeah, I mean, different firms have different rules. We don't have anything like that. Yeah. We don't have anything like that, but yeah, different firms, different rules, different ideas, and different ways of operating. But yeah, our consistency rules are not really based on the percentage of your profits. It's more just the profit amount. But again, all the details regarding how the rules work and everything you need to know as a trader and what could actually fail you from the account, and of course all the soft rules as well, is all laid out in detail. If you go to the Elevating Traders website, click on the FAQ tab, which is at the top, and of course whatever challenge you're doing, it will have the rules there for you. How is the S&P doing? I had a look at NAS, but I forgot to take a look at the S&P. Okay, so S&P is looking very bullish, comfortably above the 200 as well. So yeah, that's a very significant break there for the S&P. At this rate, I don't see much stopping us getting back to the all-time highs now at 61.44. So very, very bullish here for the S&P. Very, very bullish for the S&P. I think the market's likely to keep pushing now. There is some structure below us, which looks really good for a retest. But will we see a pullback that gets us there? I think a pullback to this area looks pretty reasonable. Back to 58.40. I feel like that's a nice place for a buy. Again, I'll probably keep that intraday. So if price does get there, I wouldn't like to take any buys further than a high like that. For example, if price was to give us a much more complex and more developed pullback, well, this could be a situation where you hang on to a trade for a while. Of course, back to highs, but probably trying to, maybe even hold it back to the all-time high there as well. It's a sensible place for it. I would definitely back that. But S&P looks very, very bullish. I would expect this one probably just to head back to the all-time highs now that we're back above the 200-day moving average. I don't really see much in front of us that can stop us, really. There is some support here on the left. We flip resistance. Looks like price is breaking through that to a degree. So to me, it looks like we're probably going to keep pushing. Looking at the US 30 as well, Dow Jones. This one, not so much. We do have some structure just above us here. So that would be a little bit, we might still struggle with that. Same with the high here as well. This is our last major swing high in the market. Pull back from that high, had a massive drop there as well. So I would be quite cautious of that. We're pulling back into that same area where, again, I think a lower high could form and push down. Now, because S&P and NAS are very, very bullish and they're likely going to push back to the highs as well, I would be cautious of that, because if S&P and NAS both push back to the all-time high as well, then US 30 is probably going to push back to the all-time highs as well. This one might still be respecting structure. It might still be respecting the 200 moving average, which again, very, very bearish, confluences. But because of what the S&P and what the NAS are doing, I feel like we're probably going to break to the upside as well. It's very unlikely you're going to get US 30 in a very bearish climate and then S&P and NAS in a very bullish climate. They might move at different paces. S&P and NAS might be a lot more bullish or bearish, but as a whole, the direction of the market, 95% of the time, is going to be in the same direction. Very unlikely you're going to see a swing like that and the S&P are going to swing up again. So because of that, I would be very skeptical about shorting Dow Jones. I feel like the bigger move is probably going to be to the upside as well. So if I drop to the 4-hour chart, I would suggest if you can come back to some areas like this, I feel like that would be a smart place for a buy, fill the gap, test some structure, and onwards and upwards. And I feel like that is probably going to give us the bigger move as well. So pretty bullish on the Dow Jones as well. I think we can still see more upside. J-Zone, what's up? Thanks again for the session. No problem, happy to help. Lebsy, trading platforms. We have our own platform. We also have MetaTrader as well, but we have our own platform which we're developing and improving. Hopefully we can look to take that to the next level. But yeah, we've got MetaTrader and our own platform, and hopefully we'll look to add some more platforms in the future as well. Again, that information you can find on the FAQ page as well. Yeah, guys, make sure you're also in the Discord for Elevating Traders. Completely free to join. Link in the description. You can share your ideas there, different setups you're looking to trade. If you're interested to see what other people are trading, or include myself, I share my ideas there too. So if you're interested, you can go check it out and see what's happening. Links to that in the description below and also at the top of the chat. But it's been a pretty boring week for myself so far. I wouldn't say price action has been boring. We've seen some interesting moves, but just setups haven't quite aligned. Pound CAD's at an interesting area, so I'm going to keep a close eye on that. I think that's going to be the top of my to-do list in the FX markets for today anyway. If this just breaks resistance, by the way, then of course I won't be looking to sell it. It's very, very pivotal that price rejects this resistance well, and I see a strong shift in momentum. If I don't see that, then there's no trade for me to take, and I'll wait for that to break to the upside and keep pushing. If I can see a significant reaction there, fantastic. I will look to short and take this right back into support. So that's going to be my main focus. I'll probably keep an eye on some of the USD pairs. I may have a stab at pound USD if the risk reward looks good. Pound USD shorts, that is. If risk reward looks good, I may have a stab at the shorts here. As we come into the trend line, basically anticipating a lower high and a push back down. So I may pay attention to that. It depends with pound CAD, because pound USD and pound CAD are very similar pairs anyway. So I don't want to be in a situation where I'm shorting pound CAD and I'm shorting pound USD, because they probably will both play out or both not. So it depends entirely on pound CAD, really, and I'll probably just pick the better one. Euro USD, I don't think the risk reward looks that great there, so I think I'll leave that one alone. I feel like if you're on a more of an intraday time frame, you might find a bit more joy there. I'm still very keen on the long-term buys for euro, so still kind of just waiting for price to get back to support before I look to buy that again. Dollar CAD, I feel like is a nice opportunity as well, but I'd rather pound USD, so I'll just focus on that one, to be honest. Likewise with dollar CHF too, and I'm talking about the buys for dollar CAD and dollar CHF. Yeah, I like it, but I feel like pound USD is a bit better, especially with the risk reward too. I think the sells again for both of them will be the bigger move. So if you could see a rally, great, and then I'll be looking to short this right back down again. and that'll be the plan there. And in terms of gold and silver, silver, not much to say on. I feel like that's just very, very flat. Gold, I feel like this could be some nice buys to be had. With this one around 31.70, 31.60. As we approach the high here, solid resistance, really nice breakout. Price yet to come back and retest it as support. So if we do push down, that'll be the first time price is using it as support, which is pretty significant. And we could be seeing somewhat of a bull flag pattern. There's your impulse, there's your correction 1, there's your correction 2. If we can find support here, I think that'll be a smart place for a buy, at least for maybe a swing back into the midpoint of the channel there. There's your midpoint, back into the midpoint of the channel. I think like it's a sensible trade. If we get to the higher end, great. If you can break out of that and push back to the highs, great. See some new highs, even better. So there is that potential for a big move there for gold. Despite the bearish momentum we've seen over the past few days, the market is still in a bullish climate. So another massive swing is definitely still on the cards for gold, which is why the buys are attractive, because if you catch it right, who knows, it could be a monster position that takes us back to 3,500 and maybe some new all-time highs as well. So I'll entertain the gold ideas because I like the risk reward to it. And again, that's a key thing of what does pique my interest. Not every trade I take is going to have a big risk reward. Some will be a bit smaller, 1 to 2s, 1 to 3s, which are still great risk rewards. But I do like taking trades which have the potential to run to 1 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, really. Because again, they're not always going to play out. But when they do, there can be massive drives in your equity curve. And you only need 3, 4 of them throughout the year, really, to give you that extra real boost in your equity curve. And they do kind of wipe out a lot of losers as well. You hit 1 to 7, that wipes out 7 losses previously, or 7 future losses you might take. So although they might not be frequent, they are very, I think, a very important part of keeping keeping your equity curve relatively healthy, because you will go through losing streaks. Every trader will do, and the bigger winners is what kind of can wipe all of that out very quickly or keep you afloat whilst it's happening. And a trade like gold right now could potentially provide that. So I like the setup there. And that's probably about it. I'm not focused with the yen pairs anymore. I was at the start of the week, but now because of the break of structure we've had, I'm not interested. I feel like there could be some nice buys at intraday though. So again, I feel like hourly 30-minute setups look good, particularly for like dollar yen. It's coming back into a nice place for a buy. So in this area here, I feel like that's a really nice place for a buy. If you can see some rejection there, I think that's a smart place to get involved. CAD yen as well, coming into a very nice place for a buy as well. CAD yen looking pretty bearish right now, so it's very, very important we see some rejection pretty quickly. I think CAD is pretty weak, so that's probably explains it. Yen is a little bit strong as well, but I think CAD is stealing the show there a little bit. But yeah, if we can see some significant reactions here in terms of wicks, bullish engulfing candles, not necessarily on the 4-hour chart, more like the hourly, I feel like there can be some really smart entries here for some buys and to take CAD yen back up again. So if you are looking at some yen pairs, I'll keep a close eye on maybe CAD yen, dollar yen, maybe New Zealand yen as well. I feel like that looks like a nice setup, coming back into some structure there too. But yeah, in terms of the bigger swing trade I was looking for, because we've broken structure, I'm not really interested in it anymore. We'll see what happens with pound CAD. It's looking pretty bullish at the moment, but the key thing is how we close, because we're pushing up now, could leave behind a big wick, which makes things very interesting. Of course, if we do close above and start to push away, certainly if we take up the highs on the left, then I will back away. But yeah, that's what my focus will be, at least for today anyway. But yeah, guys, that does take us to the end of the analysis. I will be live again tomorrow, as always, same time as always, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. UK time. If you are enjoying the streams, by the way, please be sure to drop a like. It does really help out. Subscribe to the channel And of course, hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Make sure you check out the Elevating Traders Discord channel, completely free to join. Link in the description. If you have any questions about Elevating Traders, you can drop it in the Discord. We'll be happy to answer them there as well. Of course, you can share ideas there, share setups there. I do as well. So if you want to join the community, check it out. Links in the description to that, free to join. But yeah, guys, I will be live again tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So hope to see everyone there. Before you do leave, please be sure to drop a like. It does help out the stream. I do really appreciate that, guys. And of course, subscribe to the channel as well. I do really appreciate that too. But thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. And I'll catch you all tomorrow.